All right, video is going. This is David Huslig, my director of physical therapy, and so we'll kind of begin the interview with just one, kind of tell me a little bit about yourself, where you've been, and where you're at now.
Sure. So I've been in a lot of different places. So
Okay.
I've after graduating at University of Oklahoma in '96, I've worked in the south part of the state, the west side of the state, the east side of the state, the central part of the state. I used to be down in South Oklahoma City. Then I've owned my own clinic for 5 years, and then now I've been at Mercy for approximately 9 years.
Okay. And through that, you've had plenty of managerial skills.
I have. I've had a lot of different opportunities. I've been a manager or owner in a variety of those places.
Okay. And so from that, what type of expectations do you have of managers?
One of the things is you have to be willing to work a lot of hours.
Okay.
And being very committed to the job. And then to be able to multitask. I would say those are the things that come up to me most often, is that I might be focused on project 1, but project 2, 3, and 4 pops up during the day that I have to refocus on them. So constantly reprioritizing my day as I go through it.
So obviously, you know, having to do that, it's going to provide some stress.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to find ways to de-stress outside of that. So how do you find ways to kind of come back down from that stress outside of work in the home place with family?
Yeah, I think prayer would be one of my number one deals I do with that. And then I open my day with prayer before I get out of bed. And that helps me to kind of sit and be focused throughout. And then, as you know, because we exercise together, exercise is probably my biggest physical release. And I really enjoy doing that.
So when it comes to de-stress, are there any type of, so you talked about prayer, you talked about exercise. What about, what's like your main go-to place besides that? So let's talk about with family. Is there something in particular you do with family that that you focus on with that?
Yeah, I'm not very exciting, but I'm at home a lot with my family. So I have 3 children who are in their 20s. One still in college, 2 out of college, but we're still pretty close. So they come home often, so we still communicate a lot. I talk to them on the phone a couple times a day. And then sometimes they come home, like the entire family is coming from Texas and South Oklahoma City all to our house tonight to spend time together.
So you travel a lot to see family, or are you
very invested in the family, and then church activities, be it Bible classes or church services or projects that we do within our church.
Awesome. I'm going to go into a few more example and situational questions. So give me an example of the last time you didn't meet eye to eye with a coworker and how you resolved the issue.
Yeah. I just literally came from that meeting, and so that coworker expressed frustration regarding the number of evaluations that she was placed on her yesterday, and she was very vocal about that. And so I went there and spent about 30 minutes in her office today, and just let her talk. Is really all I did.
Love that.
I did a lot of reflection. So what I heard was, and she corrected me when I didn't hear her correctly. And then I think at the end she was kind of almost exhaling, and she was able to release some of her frustrations and issues. And they're legit ones. She had good points to be made, but to get the job done and keep things rolling, once in a while we have to dig deep, and that was ultimately what I asked her to do, is dig deep during these really hard times, and keep the process going, keep her patients taken care of.
Okay. Did that make you change anything in the moment, or did you have to just keep with the process of encouragement?
I told her I would go back and reflect upon that, collect more information, and get back with her early next week. I generally don't try to make a change in courses at that moment in time, because that sometimes I'll make a commitment that I regret later on. And then for my management style, I'd rather collect and think about it and make sure I've got everyone's opinion involved with it before I finalize it.
Okay, wonderful. Another example is, when's the last time you had to pull extra time for work, and what did that look like?
It happens literally every day, every
Yes,
week on that one. And so this week, I think it was Tuesday, could have been Wednesday. I literally got up at 4:15 a.m. and came to work, and was working from 5:15 to about 7 that day.
Okay.
And so that's not normal, but that's when I had to pull extra hours. And it's just really, you got to get the job done. And I know it's an overly simplistic statement, but to get things done, sometimes you have to pull those extra hours.
Okay. When it comes to ethics, how do you go, or how would you go about unethical behavior? And then, have you ever experienced this?
Okay, so unethical behavior by my coworkers.
Sure. Or just it could be general too as well.
Yeah, I would probably in this particular setting, I would address that the moment I heard about it.
Okay.
So that is not one I would reflect upon and take time to discuss.
Sure.
And on that one, I would pull the coworker off to the side, hear it from their perspective, and probably no matter what, say we're not going to do X, Y, Z until I find out more information. And even if we're going to lose more revenue or if we don't get something taken care of, that's fine. We're going to take a step back, reflect, make sure we're doing the right thing. But I'd stop it that moment that I heard about it, and I would not let it go on until a later time. I would address it right then and there.
So in what ways do you figure out, maybe you're not for sure if it's unethical, but it feels unethical?
Yeah, if it feels unethical, then I'm just the same type of answer would be,
Okay.
I'm stopping that behavior, whatever it is.
Even if it's just, you're like, I'm not 100% this is,
Right.
but let's just go ahead and stop this and let me
Yes.
figure it out.
Right, because
Okay.
I'd much rather err on that, because I think you can find yourself, because once you slide a little bit, and when
Yeah.
you stop the slide, and so here's your standard, here's your expectation, and you never slide past that.
Okay. How would you recommend, for lack of words, lower totem pole coworkers to handle that if they're unsure? So let's say, because it makes it a little, because they feel like maybe their job is at risk, or they may feel like some other consequence could come if they provide that up. How would you have them go about it? Same way that you do, or would you have a difference?
I understand that. Yeah, I would ask that everyone would do that timeout and stop immediately, no matter what,
Okay.
and no matter what level you're at,
Sure.
for the good of the company. And we'll pause. And again, no matter if we lose money or lose something, that's fine, because we're going to win at the end.
Love that. Okay, so come back to just the managerial stuff. What are your expectations of a manager?
Being willing to go the extra mile,
Okay.
being able to handle a diverse schedule in this particular setting. So that includes, as here in this outpatient physical therapy world, my supervisors are expected to see a full caseload, and just once in a while have some management time to be able to address that. So to do that efficiently, we give them processes to put in place, a work standard, if you will, and to follow that work standard. And then that keeps all the extras from happening so often, and keeps it from developing into a big explosion if we're able to follow the right workflow.
Okay. How do you find yourself managing attitudes within the words? One thing you said is you listen.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you recorrect or just help other individuals develop and change attitudes? It could be development, it could be attitudes. Sorry, it's a little general.
That's all right. I think I would. The coworker who I addressed today had an attitude with the supervisor yesterday.
Sure.
And then so I think my goal is always to go in there and they want to be heard. And sometimes that might be 85% of it right there.
Yeah,
that
just
they
listen.
just need to be heard and someone to acknowledge. I can see how that would be really tough. That'd be a very difficult situation you're in. And then sometimes that resolves a lot of the issues. And is there a follow up with that?
No,
Okay.
I do appreciate the listening portion of it. I think we all lack that in times.
Yeah.
And particularly me at times, just listening to coworkers, adjusting, repeating back, hey, here's what I'm hearing you say. Do you ever write down notes?
Have you ever
recorded something like that
I
before?
don't. What I do is I come back and document right afterwards.
Okay.
So I have several emails that I'll develop. Here, meeting such and such at such and such time. This is what took place. The reason I don't take notes during them or in front of them, because it always makes them more nervous.
That makes
They're
sense.
constantly feeling like they're in the principal's office, even for me walking in. And so I sit back, I purposely cross my legs and lean back and talk a little bit of casual sports or weather stuff up front to help de-emphasize the intensity a little bit. And then we address the meeting. But I come across casual. But yes, I always document the meetings because I find myself in trouble if I don't, because then I can't quite remember, or they said I said something differently or something like that down the road.
Okay. Follow-up question from that is going to go towards more maybe a little personal. Give me a weakness that you feel like you seem to run into most in your life, and what are ways that you can improve upon that?
I think because I have such a diverse schedule and organization is one of my biggest issues. If we could take the camera phone and pan it throughout here, it would
would
get
see all
very,
the stuff and everything that
very
you're
clear. And I hate that. I do. I don't like that at all on that one. And I'm like this weekend, I'm gonna work extra hours I got all my patient work done this week really well, and so I'll have time to address all these papers that developed throughout the week and looks horrible, but I saved them so I can get them addressed. So organization is a skill set that is probably something I've always had since childhood, and I haven't developed it yet, but it's always something I want to develop and get better at.
And that's probably where personal assistants come into play. If we could hire you a personal assistant
Yes, that would be
and
great.
say, hey, I need this email, and then they just say, hey, I need you to read this. That would really make a...
And to that point about management, you always, no, not always, sometimes if you hire to your weak points
Yes.
and identify someone that could pick up the slack on that, that makes the efficiency of the business go way better.
Okay. So weaknesses, strengths.
Strength is the willingness to work hard.
Okay.
That's, I've kind of mentioned it a couple of times. That was set upon me from my father, who barely had the high school education type deal, barely
Same
graduated. Family life was tough when he was growing up in the dirt bowl days, and so he basically emphasized to me, go outwork them, David. And so that would be one of my strengths, is to outwork the next guy that's there. And hopefully then within all that, then on the cognitive side is compassion and caring on that one. And then a skill set to be able to manage multiple different things at one time. And that's something I did not have back in the early 2000s. I got a job in 2000 to be a manager. And I remember literally laughing to myself out loud when and within 20 minutes, 5 different problems hit at one time.
Yep.
And I go, there's just no way when you're a staff therapist, there's no way you would understand all these problems that exist at the same time. And then to finally getting to where you prioritize that and be able to make decisions that are impactful for that day.
Okay. And one thing we've learned, and one thing I've seen, is the ethical dilemma, where you have 5 problems. 2 of them are not going to, 2 of them are going to be things that move the clinic forward or move your business forward, but then the other 2 are going to be affected by those 2, possibly not fully resolved, but as best they can be because of something else.
Yeah.
So, in what ways have you developed a stance on how you do that? Is it what's best for the clinic, what's best for the coworkers? You try to just find your middle ground between those 2?
Yeah, kind of a sporting term. What's the long game?
Yeah.
What's best
long term?
Not today and tomorrow, but next week, next month, next year, and always thinking about that, because you can take hits and losses in the hours here, but you cannot let them build up and have an environment build up where your business is affected next month and the following months.
Okay. So obviously you're a go-getter. I would consider you an extrovert, correct? Would you consider yourself an extrovert? Do you have energy when you're around people, or do you feel like you need time to process?
I think God gave me an ability to be both. I think at times you might think of me as a little bit of an introvert sometimes too, but I'm kind of happy wherever I'm at.
Okay. Do you find that benefits you when maybe you have coworkers that are introverts that you have to tend to and find things? In what ways do you?
I think I identify with them a little bit better, and then maybe hopefully I can approach them in a calm, collected, reflective type way where they're not in an offended position, and certainly never calling them out in front of any others. I wouldn't do that anyhow, but making sure if there is a need to call them to address issues that they feel very comfortable in that setting.
Okay. So you would say it's probably best to assume introvert, and then if they are extroverted, then you can learn to approach them better.
I think that would be a way. Hopefully I know them well enough before the issues develop that I can approach them and I do a lot of observation in the clinic. So I might be working on someone, but I'm constantly looking out to the clinic and seeing what's going on, hoping I can develop an identity to their temperament, who they are and how they approach life and what they talk about, and then I'll try to address that with them.
Okay, so you identify the personality, you kind of figure out how they are, and you try to maybe take your managerial skills and approach it in that way.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever find yourself fail in that, or do you ever find yourself just absolutely succeed in that? And any example in particular where you found that?
I don't know if I can think of an example, but I would say I failed a lot on that one, specifically up front. And you make a lot of errors up front on your and in management. Even if we're talking about management, I got a minor in business administration from Oklahoma State University, and all that kind of stuff. So X amount when you come out of school, but the trial and error is really what teaches you a lot about life also. So I would say I failed a ton, but hopefully I would say now, going into my 25th year of being a physical therapist, I make fewer mistakes per day.
Yeah. Okay. Time is good.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Amen.
Awesome, man. I'll get this video turned off. We're at 14 and a half minutes. I'll take that and I'll end up cutting that down.